Drake, my brother, I think you're not reading the room here. You just went through one of the most horrifying rap battles of life. I do kind of look at Drake like, bad timing again.
You a thought, Bobby.
Are you calling me that right now?
Kind of. You a little thotty, Bobby.
I study rap battles for a living.
Drake built his career on being the guy who couldn't lose. Every diss he dropped became a meme. Every hit stayed on the charts, and every controversy just seemed to bounce off him. But after the war with Kendrick Lamar, things looked different. This wasn't just another rap beef. This was the one that cracked Drake's armor. And now every move he makes looks desperate. Instead of bouncing back with fire, he's trying too hard to spin the narrative, and fans aren't buying it. One of the wildest examples came the same weekend Kendrick was rocking LA with Clips at the GNX tour. While Kendrick was on stage with Pusha T, Drake was online flexing his latest purchase, Tupac's Death Row chain. Think about how crazy that is. Kendrick's performing with Clips, bringing back the spirit of real hip-hop on the West Coast. And Drake responds by flashing jewelry linked to Pac, like it's some kind of subtle shot. Fans saw it for what it was, petty. Instead of showing respect to the culture, Drake tried to troll with artifacts. This isn't the first time either. Remember when he bought Pharrell's old jewelry and used it for props in the Jimmy Cooks video while beefing with Pusha T? Same playbook. It's not about honoring legends. It's about trying to rewrite history with stunts. But the difference now is that people aren't laughing with him anymore. They're side-eyeing him. To a lot of fans, it feels like Drake doesn't know how to exist in hip-hop without trolling somebody else's legacy. Pac's chain doesn't make you the king of the West. Pharrell's jewelry doesn't erase your L's to Pusha T. And Kendrick outperforming you in your own backyard proved that props can't replace respect. Drake thought he was flexing, but it just made him look insecure. That insecurity shows up in how he deals with the media too. When it comes to hip-hop journalists, Drake's been moving hostile. He came at Rob Markman for simply reporting on him. He's taken shots at Joe Budden after Joe criticized his music. Drake wants hip-hop media to bow down, but when they don't, he lashes out. And yet, when it's time for an interview, he runs to Bobby Althoff or streamers like Aiden Ross and XQC. Safe spaces, rooms where nobody checks him, nobody asks the real questions. It's the equivalent of hiding out in suburban basements while ducking the barbershop debates. And that's the irony. For years, Drake loved to say he was for the culture. But when the culture checks him, he'd rather be on Kickstream's gambling, laughing with Aiden, or sitting awkwardly on Bobby Althoff's podcast. Those aren't hip-hop platforms. They're internet distractions. And while that works for influencers, it don't work for someone who still wants to be respected as one of rap's greats. Fans notice the difference. Kendrick can sit with OGs, rappers, and critics because he's confident in his work. Drake avoids those rooms because he knows the questions will cut too deep. The result? Drake feels less like the king of rap and more like a pop star turned content creator. He's chasing clicks instead of commanding respect. The Tupac chain stunt, the jewelry trolling, the safe interviews, it all paints the picture of someone scrambling to control the narrative instead of just letting the music do the talking. And the scariest part for Drake? The music ain't hitting like it used to either.
I study rap battles for a living.
The one thing that always kept Drake bulletproof was the music. No matter how many people clowned him online, he could always drop a hit and shut it all down. That's why this moment feels so different. Because for the first time in his career, the music ain't saving him. After the smoke cleared from the Kendrick beef, Drake tried to bounce back with new drops. But outside of one track, Nokia, nothing stuck. Nokia was the only joint that felt like old Drake, catchy, slick, and made for radio. It gave him a flash of his usual dominance, but even that track faded faster than expected. Meanwhile, everything else he's been putting out post-beef, forgettable. The kind of records fans listen to once and never run back. That's a huge red flag, because for years Drake was the soundtrack of the summer. If he dropped, you heard it in the club, on the radio, in car speakers, everywhere. But lately, Kendrick's diss records are getting more spins at parties than Drake's recovery songs. That's not just a loss, that's a shift in the culture. People would rather replay Not Like Us than give Drake's new tracks another chance. And it ain't just the music itself, it's how he's moving with it. Drake's been leaning heavy on streaming culture to promote his drops, instead of standing 10 toes in hip-hop. He's gambling live on Kick with Aiden Ross. He's joking around with XQC. He's running around with internet streamers instead of rolling with hip-hop legends. That makes his music feel less serious, like it's just another piece of content for clicks. Fans see it too. They say Drake looks like a man who traded rap credibility for influencer relevance. Meanwhile, look at how Kendrick moved after the beef. He didn't need to drop a dozen new songs to prove he won. He let Not Like Us live, then doubled down with the GNX tour. Every show turned into a victory lap with sold-out stadiums, surprise appearances like Clips in LA, and a fan base treating him like the people's champ. While Drake was scrambling online, Kendrick was packing arenas and giving fans live moments they'll never forget. The contrast couldn't be louder. Drake's out here fighting for streams, Kendrick's out here building legacies, and fans are noticing. Social media has flipped on Drake in a way that feels new. People clown him for Nokia being his only recent W. They call his other drops filler. They say he's acting like a content creator more than an artist. And when you're Drake, a man who built his career on dominance, perception like that cuts deep. Even the numbers are starting to show cracks. Drake was once unstoppable on the charts, but now his singles aren't sticking in the top spots like they used to. Meanwhile, Kendrick's One Diss song charted like a smash hit without any radio push. It's the perfect example of the culture choosing sides. Drake can drop a polished single with a big budget video, but Kendrick can freestyle on a stage and still steal all the attention. And that's the scary part for Drake. Because if the music ain't working, the props, the jewelry trolling, and the safe interviews won't matter. Hip-hop only respects one thing at the end of the day, the bars. And right now, Kendrick's pen is still echoing, while Drake's latest drops feel like background noise.
I study rap battles for a living.
Drake's always been a master of reinvention. He went from actor to rapper, rapper to global pop star, and then from superstar to mogul. But this latest chapter, it don't feel like reinvention. It feels like desperation. Instead of moving like hip-hop's leader, Drake's moving like a content creator chasing clicks. And that's why fans keep clowning him. Let's keep it real. Nobody's mad at rappers expanding. Hip-hop's always crossed into movies, fashion, and business. But the way Drake's been hanging around the streamer world looks forced. He's been all over Kick, gambling live with Aiden Ross, laughing it up with XQC, and throwing money around on stake promos like it's part of his new personality. The same man who once dominated rap debates is now acting like a Twitch personality, trying to stay relevant with teenagers. To a lot of fans, this screams insecurity, because when you're confident in your music, you don't need gimmicks. Kendrick ain't gambling online with influencers. J. Cole ain't trying to sit on streams for clout. But Drake, he's in that world heavy, like he's trying to tap into a younger crowd because he knows the culture's slipping away from him. It's the same reason he keeps popping up in awkward spaces, like Bobby Althoff's podcast. Rooms where he won't get grilled, won't face hip-hop questions, and can keep the vibe safe. And that's where the criticism hits. Drake used to be able to walk into the toughest rooms and still come out respected. Now it looks like he avoids those rooms altogether. Instead of talking to Charlemagne the God or sitting down with veteran hip-hop media, he'd rather be in Aiden Ross's basement, gambling in front of kids. That's not the behavior of a king. That's the behavior of somebody running from accountability. The craziest part is how different this feels from the Drake we knew. The old Drake was obsessed with proving himself against rappers, dropping records that silenced critics, and reminding everyone that he was number one. The new Drake looks like a man trying to convince us he's still having fun, even though the losses keep stacking. Fans are noticing too. They're saying Drake's spending more time promoting casinos than pushing classics. They're saying his interviews feel more like TikTok clips than cultural moments. It's like the internet flipped his role. He went from being the soundtrack of the culture to being the punchline in meme culture. Meanwhile, the timing couldn't be worse. Kendrick Lamar is showing fans the exact opposite. He's standing on stage with Clips in LA, he's selling out arenas, and he's letting the music speak louder than any PR stunt. Kendrick looks like a man comfortable in his skin, while Drake looks like someone scrambling to distract people from reality. And here's the thing, Once fans see you as a streamer rapper, it's hard to walk that back. Hip-hop doesn't respect gimmicks for long. People still love Drake, but they don't fear him anymore. They don't see him as untouchable. They see him as an entertainer who's closer to Aiden Ross than to Jay-Z. And for a man who spent 15 years building an empire on dominance, that's a dangerous perception to carry. Drake might think he's expanding his brand, but to the culture it feels like he's shrinking. Because the more he leans on kick streams, stake gambling, and safe podcasts, the less he looks like the rap giant he once was. And the fans can smell it. He's not leading the culture anymore. He's chasing it.
I study rap battles for a living.
The more Drake scrambles online, the easier it is to see the contrast. Kendrick Lamar is running laps around him. After their beef, Kendrick didn't just win on wax. He took that energy and flipped it into real-world dominance. His GNX tour is selling out stadiums across the globe. Fans aren't just going to hear music. They're treating every show like history in the making. When Kendrick brought out Clips in Los Angeles, it wasn't just a surprise. It was a moment that reminded the world he's rooted in hip-hop legacy. That one performance had more impact than all of Drake's stunts combined. And that's the key difference. Kendrick's not trying to buy respect with jewelry, artifacts, or gimmicks. He's building it with music and moments. Fans see him side by side with Pusha T, celebrating real artistry, while Drake is online flexing Tupac's death row chain like a pawn shop trophy. Kendrick's move felt organic. Drake's felt petty. The culture always recognizes the difference. Awards season is about to widen that gap even more. Word is Kendrick's lining up for Grammy sweeps off the back of Not Like Us and his feature run. Critics are praising him as the voice of the culture, while Drake's post-beef drops barely make noise outside of Nokia. That's not just a chart problem, it's a respect problem. In hip-hop, when your opponent wins the people, the critics, and the streets at the same time, you're cooked. And that's the spot Drake's in right now. The internet hasn't let him forget it either. Memes roasting Drake's gambling streams, screenshots of him on Bobby Althoff's podcast looking awkward, and constant reminders that Kendrick's diss still gets spins. It all keeps his L alive. In another era, Drake would have been able to bury this with hits. But in 2024, the hits ain't sticking, and the distractions just look like clown behavior. It's deeper than just a beef now. Drake's being rebranded by the culture, whether he likes it or not. For years, he was seen as the face of hip-hop. Maybe not the most lyrical, but the biggest, most dominant, most unstoppable. Now, he looks like a man fighting to hold on while Kendrick slides into the role of cultural leader. Fans see Kendrick as the serious artist, the activist voice, the guy who still represents the essence of rap. Drake looks like a pop star trying to stay relevant through content culture. That's a massive shift, and it might be permanent. Drake's legacy ain't gone. He's still one of the biggest hit makers ever. But in hip-hop, respect is currency, and his is running low. Every jewelry stunt, every streamer collab, every safe interview makes him look smaller next to Kendrick's larger-than-life moments. And once the culture decides you're the one playing catch-up, that's the beginning of the end. At the end of the day, this beef exposed something bigger than just two rappers throwing shots. It exposed that Drake might have all the money and connections in the world, but Kendrick has what really matters, the people's respect. And in hip-hop, that's priceless. Drake's chasing clicks, Kendrick's building legacies. And that's why, right now, the culture's riding with Kendrick while Drake keeps looking lost in the noise.